Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Infinite Lagrange. This video has been sponsored by NetEase, and if you're concerned about what that means for my channel, then please do check out the link in my description below. That'll take you through to Discord, and you can read the press release that I've posted there on the Cat Skull Discord. Now, on the subject of Discords, you should come and join that one anyway, because it's jam-packed full of like-minded folks like yourself who love all things mobile gaming, spaceships, love to chat about Infinite Lagrange and various different other games. Do make sure as well that you are checking out the Infinite Lagrange official Discord, as it is crammed to the nines with folks who love to tell you all about their favourite ships, the best fleet compositions, the best ways to take cities, and we'll just give you all kinds of friendly help and advice. Well worth joining. I've learned a lot thanks to my time there. On the subject of shameless promotion, as usual, hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ding the notification bell. You should be familiar with all of this right now, unless this is the very first YouTube video you've ever watched, in which case I'm flattered, and welcome to YouTube. Anyway, in today's Infinite Lagrange video, we're going to be talking about carriers. Now, we've touched on these very briefly when we looked at aircraft, and we touched on them briefly when we looked at super capital ships. If you haven't watched both of those videos already, I will provide links in the description below, and if I remember at the top of the screen here, please make sure you have checked out those two videos first. Everything here will make a lot more sense if you are familiar with how aircraft work and how super capital ships work first of all. So seriously, if you haven't watched those, go watch them now, pause this one, I will be here waiting when you get back. We done? We good? Let's continue then and have a look at some of the different stuff. Now, before we actually look at the carriers themselves, I need to just jump into the store here, and we're going to have a look at some of the different types of ships out there in the game. Now, when we talk about carriers, some people think of things like the Ceres, which is an aircraft launching destroyer. There's the Predator, the KCCP V2.0, these are cruisers that can launch aircraft. No, what I mean is the carrier class of vessels here, like we have the Solar Whale and the CV3000. These are your two main carriers that you may unlock. The CV3000 tends to be most people's first unlock, as you can get it both in black market tech file boxes and even in the generic boxes, which is really cool. Now, when we talk about carriers, we talk about different sizes of aircraft, and you'll notice that there are, of course, aircraft and corvettes. Now, we've talked about corvettes and aircraft being completely different things before, but they are notably different. There are also different types of aircraft themselves. You'll notice that, for example, here, if you look at the Stingray on the top row, in the second row, the VTAS 8010, and in the bottom row, the Bullfrog, notably one each from Jupiter Industries, Antonius Consortium, and the Noma Shipping Group. These are bombers, and bombers count as a large aircraft. They cannot be launched from all types of aircraft ships. In fact, if you were to get a Ceres aircraft destroyer, for example, and then try and launch some Stingrays from it, it's simply not going to work. That's where a carrier is going to come in. So with that understood, let's actually have a look at what a carrier is. We go into blueprints and ship blueprints. On this particular file, I only have the CV3000 unlocked. I have had the Solar Whale on other characters as well, but on this particular one, CV3000 is the one we want to talk about, because I'm going to showcase this. Now, as I said, the CV3000 is a little bit easier to unlock, as it is a generic blueprint. You can get this a little bit more readily, courtesy of it being both in black market tech files and in standard generic boxes. Just makes it that little bit easier to get across, and you'll see that if people have carriers, they tend to be these ones before they get the Solar Whale. Not always the case, but it tends to be. Now, like with other super capital ships, you can modify the blueprint design here. You can go into the aircraft hangar and you can change this to different types if you're lucky enough to unlock them. This one you can see gives me a large aircraft hangar and a corvette dock. I don't know what the M2 and the M3 do. We then also have the Dragoon battery system, which I know here can be swapped out. I think there's a missile system later on that can be added in there instead, or perhaps it's a railgun one, I'm not entirely sure. But again, like with battle cruisers, you can unequip one of these if you've unlocked, after you've unlocked the CV3000 blueprint. If you find the CV3000 blueprint in a box again, you can train that to unlock one of its modules, and that will either be the optional one here instead of the Dragoon battery system, or it'll be instead of the integrated aircraft hangar, and you can swap those and do all kinds of crazy different things with them. Now, we know here, if we go into the combat roles, we can see what this actually does. It's a back row ship, most carriers are, and they're going to be right at the very back of your fleet so they don't take damage easily, and very few ships out there have carrier priority, so they tend to be one of the last ships that get attacked by things that aren't other aircraft, meaning if you've got some good anti-aircraft or anti-aircraft ships nearby, then you can usually protect a carrier fairly easily. You can see here it says it can carry aircraft and it can carry corvettes, and its primary damage from its own weapon systems are against ships. And certainly if we were to have a look at that Dragoon battery system, we can have a look at its damaging here, and it will fight corvettes, fighters, destroyers and frigates. The triple cannon here is destroyers, frigates, carriers, battle cruisers and cruisers, so it does actually do pretty well against other ships as well. But if you're using a carrier, I don't know, there's part of me that thinks you lean into its bonuses, right? You might want to upgrade the Dragoon battery system if you want to be shooting enemy ships and not worry too much about your aircraft, but it's a carrier. I kind of feel that the aircraft enhancements are where the fun lies, right? So we've got a couple of different options here. We have things like the auxiliary attack radar, which increases the hit rate of all aircraft in the hangar. That's both your corvettes and your aircraft themselves. I've got the rearmament acceleration, which reduces the return to battle cooldown, meaning that they get back into the fight that little bit faster. And again, same there, return to battle cooldown. I like the return to battle ones because I think I'm upgrading my corvettes enough as it is on their own. I don't necessarily need the carrier to be doing more for them other than getting them into the battle more frequently. So things like the airborne ammo enhancement increasing their damage, the airborne weapon maintenance increasing their damage, those are nice, but I'd rather go for things like hit chance and return to battle cooldown that little bit more. The missile evasion one's pretty sweet as well, as it means that if you're sending aircraft out, they're less likely to be hit by enemy missiles and thus more survivable. That's a really useful one, especially if you know your opponent is using a lot of things like Antonius Consortium ships, has a heavy missile dependency. If they're using things like Reliats or Winged Hussars, which most of their anti-aircraft damage is done via missiles, then, well, you can whack that all the way up for the extra bonuses there. I really like the CV3000. This is a surprisingly fast ship. They refer to it as a high-speed carrier. They're not lying. 2,000 warp speed, 400 cruising speed. It's right up there with a lot of the cruisers. A ship this size, you'd expect it to be a lot smaller, and you can even go into the propulsion system and enhance it further with additional cruising speed. And there's even a lovely little evasion one at the end there if you're worried about this ship getting lost in battle. This is a great way to make sure it survives once it takes critical damage. In fairness, though, I don't tend to worry about this. 20 enhancement points is an awful lot of enhancement points for something that shouldn't actually come up in most battles. Anyway, so that's the CV3000 itself. Next question then is, how do you actually build one of these once you've got the blueprint? Well, as we discussed when it comes to super capital ships, you are first and foremost going to have needed to unlock the super capital shipyard. This reduces the battlecruiser building time, it reduces the carrier building time as you upgrade it, but most importantly, it unlocks the super capital shipyard. You cannot build super capitals without a super capital shipyard. Seems fairly obvious, right? But even once you unlock that at tech level 7, you still can't build your carriers. You'll unlock the battlecruiser dockyard at that level, I'm sure, but as you come up to tech level 8, that's where we get the carrier dockyard. Unlocking the carrier dockyard gives us that the ship can build carrier, but above it, you'll see it also, by upgrading the carrier dockyard, you reduce the building time and increase the repair speed, both of which are really, really useful. Of course, you will need aircraft hangars and things like that as well, and aircraft production lines. Now, of course, this means if we go into the super capital shipyard, we will get carriers here right at the bottom. You can see I'm maxed out pretty much on my current command points in the port, so I can't build another one right now, but these are pretty expensive in materials. You can see there, 214,000 metal, 24.6 on crystal, and 35.05 thousand on deuterium. Again, very costly there, and they do take a while to build as well. But once you've built one, we can go into ship management and then we find it in our dock. And here it is. I've got a CV3000 high-speed carrier. We can then, of course, have a look at its stats there. I'm here on screen, anti-ship fire, air defense, siege fire, and we can tap on aircraft. Now, if we tap on aircraft, we get this wonderful screen here. Large aircraft hangar on the left and a corvette hangar on the right. Now for the large aircraft hangar, this is capable of fitting any type of aircraft. I'm going to put in some SC-002s because I quite like these. They're interesting damage and they jam your enemy's ships. They're also quite nice for anti-aircraft purposes. The Sandrakes or the Strix would also work really nicely there. Now for the corvettes, I've recently unlocked the Nebula Chaser, but I've skilled the cellular defenders up so much higher, so we're going to add 3 cellular defenders into that corvette hangar, and you'll see, bam, there we are, it's all ready to go. And you'll notice that there is the ability to tick or untick available aircraft only in the bottom right, so that you don't have to worry about any aircraft you may not have. Now, with that in case, I'm now going to come back out. I'm going to open up my little carrier fleet here, which I have for defense, and I'm going to add that second carrier in there. So we now have a fleet that contains 2 carriers and 3 of our little, I forget what they're called now, Mare Tranquillitatis Potts Cannon frigates, of course, which are anti-aircraft frigates there that are sitting on the side. Now, I like to add this as a basic form of base defense. You'll see I've got a couple of fleets all around here, currently docked in various different blockades. I've even got one here down by my advanced mining platform. I'm now going to send out my carrier fleet here. There it goes, off to blockade this area as well. And it's likely that the other fleet is going to provide tank here. I don't recommend sending out carriers on their own like this for the most part. I expect that in most cases, you're going to want to have some kind of tank in the front rows there as well. ST-59 battlecruisers are an excellent option for tanking there, especially if you've built them all the way up, but ultimately any battlecruiser will provide, as long as it's mid-row or front row, will provide a nice wall of armour that needs to be shot through before they reach the carriers. Most ships that have carrier priority tend to have battlecruisers higher up the list, but in a pinch you could even put some Casso 99s or 66, I forget what they're called now, the Cassos. Put the Cassos in there, there we are, the Casso 66. Why did I think Casso 99? It's because it's hot here and I'm wanting a 99 flake ice cream. Put some Casso 66 there in the front of a carrier, and those will also tank surprisingly well. The carriers dish out an insane amount of damage, courtesy of their corvettes. Yeah, definitely don't put them in a fleet on their own like I've done. I'm doing this just to demonstrate and put another fleet out there. If something comes from this sort of angle down here, then of course the current blockade fleet's going to engage first. The carriers will move in behind and be sort of flanking an additional support, which works really nicely. But protect your carriers. They tend to be a little bit squishier than other ships of their size. Again, the Solar Whale is a bit of an exception to that. It's Noma Shipping Group. Noma Shipping Group tend to build their ships thick and tanky in as far as armor goes, but they tend to have very low energy resists. So just bear that in mind if you're flying carriers out there. Excellent ships for combat, allow you to pack a real aircraft punch. Let me know how you folks get on with them. That is everything I wanted to say about carriers. As I said, I really like the CV3000. I think this is, in my opinion, a little bit better than the Solar Whale, thanks to its speed and its versatility. It's a little bit cheaper and things like that. But it's kind of up to you. They both have pros and cons. I just tend to use the CV3000 a bit more. If I get a Solar Whale come up, I might even consider re-rolling it. I'm kidding. I would never do that. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching this one right the way to the end. Let me know what you think about carriers. What's your favourite carrier? What favourite aircraft do you like to put in them? What kind of fleet composition do you put around your carriers? Let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, folks, happy sailing and see you in Infinite Lagrange.